which is critical in then determining what other verses mean or might be in reference to. So if you don't understand what we were talking about earlier of the significance of this perspective or information, then you will be looking at other verses and other references with a completely different mind. So it's suddenly a lot quieter back there. That's good. The machine going is just really annoying. Anyway, what I'm saying is that we took, 6 different sessions now trying to establish the significance of the understanding in this 22-letter sequence. So just as a recap real quick, without, going into the whole thing, but just saying these letters are not of human origin. They were designed by Yahuwah. Both the meaning of the letter, the count of the 22 letters, the sequence of the letters, the fact that they're all his stuff, means that to study these letters is to study him, because they're self-expression. So the fact that the letter Aleph begins many words that are translated, I am such and such, or I will such and such, it's self-referential. So if you can look at Hebrew words that start with the Aleph and realize they're self-referential of the speaker, then to look at this alphabet as a word starting with an Aleph means it's self-referential of the speaker. So therefore, for me to claim that Yahuwah himself designed the alphabet is to say that the alphabet is talking about himself. It's his revelation of himself, his expression of his own. When I say mind, the word ruach is not just spirit, but it's also mind. And as we were saying, that the word ruach in Hebrew also means expanse, to enlarge or ventilate or give air. So to expand from the Aleph to the Tav, if he's the guy who determined that is the expanse, anything from him is kadosh. By definition, it's not human. It's not human translation or interpretation or human agenda or human tradition or religion or politic. It's his stuff. So the angels, the cherubim around the throne, when they say kadosh, 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 that's all they can express, because they're beholding purely his emanation. So if this is his pure emanation that he described and delineated from Aleph to Tav, then that makes the Hebrew alphabet kadosh, or kodesh, or there's different vowels you plug in, different aspects of the verb tense, but it's basically kuf, dalet, shin, the letter kuf, the letter dalet, the letter shin, or maybe you stick a vav in between there. But the word on the headband of the high priest, kadosh layawa, meaning set apart or holy or sanctified or sacred, it also means betrothed. So this is kadosh layawa. The word lamed as a la Yahweh can mean by or for or regarding. So if this is kadosh laYahweh, it's by him and it's in reference to him. But that means that the alphabet from Aleph to Tav, that expanse, is the Ruach HaKodesh. And as I mentioned before, if I said the alphabet is the Holy Spirit, people would want to just say I'm an idiot and throw stones. But if I can explain it the way I just did, so you understand that the expanse is the Ruach, and Kadosh means it's his idea and his expression, it makes perfect sense. Which is to say, to look at Hebrew stuff, the headband of the high priest said Kadosh LaYahweh, and it's translated set apart unto him, or it's translated in English, holiness unto the Lord. What does that mean? But that's English. But you look in the dictionary, it also means betrothed unto Yahuwah. So technically, you could wear, written on your headband, Kadosh Yahweh, because you're saying, hey, I'm betrothed to Yahweh. Which is exactly, the word betrothed means in truth, completely set apart, off limits to anybody else. Nobody mess with me because I'm spoken for. So then it says in Zechariah 14, the next to the last verse of the whole book, it says it'll be written in one day in Jerusalem, it'll be written on the bells of the horses, Kadosh Yahweh. Well, so if somebody were to say, hey, this is too sacred, it's on the headband of the high priest, written in gold, and how dare we make it common? The bells of the horses, how common is that? The word bell literally is the word Betzalel. The word spelled Zadi Lamed is a bell, and it means to shade or cover. An umbrella is the same word. It's that which gives shade. In Spanish, the word sombrero is hat, right? But the sombrero means to shade or cover. So if you have a covering, it's not a bell, but it's what a bell does and what a bell looks like. So the bells of the horses could be also the sombreros of the horses. What? Horses don't wear hats. Well, maybe some of those guys with the straw hats you see in the old... It's something which gives shade. But it says it's going to be written on the bells of the horses. The word horse is sus, samik vav samik. Just for what it's worth. Samik vav samik is the word sus. That's a S-U-S. So we said the other day, if you said ha, meaning the, if you said ha, sus, that kind of sounds like where you get the word Jesus, and we talked about that, not to get into that, but that's what I'm saying, it means the horse. Hasus is the horse. But samik, now this is how you kind of decipher Hebrew words. If you put a yod or a vav in between the other consonants, they act like wild cards. As I said, you can add them, take them out, and look up other words in the dictionary to find out the essence of what's going on with this word. So if you look at samik, it's the word for moth. And it's also the word for a fluttering flag. Okay, so why would the similar word for horse, moth, and fluttering flag, can anybody kind of, what I use the word sepher that, or synthesize that, and come up with an explanation as to why would those three words have essentially the same spelling, which is a double samik? Anybody want to throw out a correlation between them? Just how does your mind work there?
Well, I can see the fluttering, but I don't get the horse.
Okay, so what is a moth flutters around a light and a flag flutters in the wind, right? Okay, what does that got to do with a horse? And the reason I'm showing you this is that I'm trying to show you there's a whole different way to read Hebrew. It's not just the translation. It's picture concepts. Okay, if I were to say moth, you might picture a photograph of a moth. What do you see when you picture a moth in action? Flapping his wings and darting all about the light bulb at night, right? Are you trying to... Okay, so she's describing a running horse with his legs and his mane as the same picture as a fluttering flag and zipping around with his legs in a flurry. It's the same picture type. That's what I saw in my mind. So it's not just the static image of moth or the identification of moth, it's the action of what the moth is doing, the action of what the fluttering flag is doing, and the action of what the horse is doing. So in this particular verse, that on the bells of the horses, that's what it says, and that's how it's translated. And you can look at the word, Zadi Lamed Hey, it might be there, and say, oh, that means bell. Look in the dictionary. It also means to be shaded, covered, the same form, like a cupped hand, that a bell is in that form. But what's it mean? So if it means the covering over the thing that zips around in a flurry, have you ever seen a video that's speeded up because they push it together and make it fast action, right? Clouds moving really fast. If you see a cityscape and see the cars zipping around because the way it's photographed, don't those cars kind of look like fluttering moths? Okay, so if Zechariah was told in the later days, this word Kadosh LeYahweh will literally be on the bells of the horses, we could picture in our modern context, they don't allow horses in Jerusalem, they make a mess. If they have a pageant, they'll have horses. But that's a theatrical show. But what if it was written on the cabs of the cars, like a window decal? It fulfills the same thing. Or even if it's on your hat band of the flurry of people, the tourists visiting Jerusalem, it's kind of the same picture. Because the tourists, if you see what's going on there, it's just this flurry of people coming in, walking around, looking at stuff and buying stuff and looking here and going there and jump on the bus and zip around and come back. And it's that fluttering flurry, which isn't the same thing as somebody just living there and going through their daily routine of getting up and farming and, you know, kind of a daily life. It's this other picture. So, and this is subjective on my part, but my thinking is to say, well, if it says one day that's going to be happening. So last night we were talking about a certain organization who's reading in Jeremiah 31 about Goyim, Gentiles, tending the vineyards of the Jews of the land. So it's like, hey, okay, let's go tend the vineyards. We're Goyim, we're Gentiles, we're going to tend the vineyards of the Jews of the land. Hey, we're fulfilling a 3,000-year-old prophecy. That's what they're doing. It's like, okay, so if you want to consider yourself a Goyim Gentile, which means that you're an idiot who doesn't know how to read the scripture, that's literally what the word means. You have no record or no bearing of any of these instructions. You're a pagan, heathen, infidel, and you want to go over there and tend the vineyards of people who are not who it describes by being really Kadosh LeYahweh themselves. Well, go ahead and have at it. So the question is, what are the conditions that these verses set up? And if we want to play into it, thus fulfilling the prophecy, how do we do that? What should we be about the business doing? So we've only got a few minutes in this particular talk. I'm using this as an example, and I want to show you something in Ezekiel 36:23, which itself is another type of prophecy. And I'm just invoking the conversation of last night, because if you go to Jeremiah 31 and you read that, read who the vineyards belong to, and read who the people are that are tending the vineyards, and then take yourself and try to plug yourself into the equation and see if it fits. If it fits, have at it. If it doesn't fit, you might want to rethink what you're doing. So my point is, if I go to Jerusalem and have Kadosh LeYahweh written on my hat, and I'm one of the tourists, it looks like it's fitting the picture, but it says in the translation, bells of the horses. But the picture type doesn't have to be a bell and doesn't necessarily have to be a horse, because it's the action. And if I make a bumper sticker that says Kadosh LeYahweh and stick it on my car, it's the same picture. So just so you know, I've done that. I've printed up some bumper stickers. I don't have them with me. The PDF file is in the thing called the Shields Project and on my internet site. You're welcome to have it and print it out, or I can even send some up here if people want me to send some stuff up. And put them on your cars. And you're not in Jerusalem, but, you know, whatever. It's getting into the mind. So this thing about having the alphabet around my hat, we did a little video called Ephraim's Phylactery. The phylactery, the Jews put the little box, and on it are written the words. Or the name of Yahuwah, set apart on him. What do these words mean? Well, if you know what these words mean, it's the whole story of the covenant. It's the whole story revealing that Yeshua is the Mashiach. It's the whole story that says Israel can come back to the terms of the covenant and get the blessings instead of the curse, if we come back to adhere to, be mindful of these words. So to have them wrapped around your mind, well, it's not the way the Jews have the phylactery, but nobody ever said in the scripture that you had to have them a certain way. It just says, have these things as frontlets on your eyes. And the word eye literally means consider, look, ponder, evaluate, weigh, measure, balance exactly, and determine just what they are, which is what we're doing regarding the Aleph Bet. So by having it around your head on the headband is just a way of messing around, but it's really serious, but it's also having fun. So, what's that? Oh, thank you very much. Oh, don't need it at the moment. Yes, Ben. So Yeshua had the thorny crown, and there's this picture of what he's saying is that we can go back and look at the word for thorn, which happens to be a Samic, Kufan Zadi also, but what I'm saying is that we can look at these words and say, how do you do these words? Well, let's ask the Jews. And you go back and look at what maybe is teaching or tradition or culture, or maybe look a little further back and say, well, this is a historical reference. How did they dress? And we can say, well, let's do that. Well, you're welcome to do that if you want, but it's not mandated. How do you take what he said, that those guys lived their real life, and make it your own? So this whole business of colored tzitzit, or I've even seen some people, especially some women, who put in beads and sequins and buttons and stuff that matches their outfit. And some people get really upset about that. But all he said was, have a blue thread, and when you look at it, you'll remember to do what I told you. Did he say if you don't have a blue thread, you're going to go to hell? No. Did he say the women have to wear them or can't wear them? No. He said, B'nai Israel. Well, that's translated as son or children. But there was no stipulation that it was, as we discussed before, a salvation issue. So whether you do or don't, it's up to you. Do you want to remember so you get the blessing? And if you happen to forget, you just might bump into the curse, because whatever you do is going to be measured back to you. Whatever goes around comes around. Well, yeah, but we're forgiven. Well, David was forgiven, but when he put Uriah the Hittite to the sword, then it came back on him. So the things we choose to do and the things we choose to regard are for our benefit, our family's benefit, our people group's benefit, and playing into everything he said had to happen first before other things happen. There's a lot of things that are conditional. If such and such, then this and that. So when you're doing your study, take a note. How often does something say if, then, and then you say, well, is that done away with, or is he telling us this is the way it works? Okay, so this thing about the hat band, just playing around, these are just letters I painted. I got a hat and painted the letters. And I've seen other people having them bigger, smaller, different colors. You know, my wife did a hat and wrote Kadosh LaYahweh or Hodu LaYahweh Ki Tov. Play with the words so that it affects your mind and your mouth and your behavior. And we were talking about yesterday maybe, so they have these tefillin where they wrap this leather strap around their arm. That's the way they do it. There's 12 tribes, 12 stones, each with a particular luster, each with a particular calling, a particular perspective. And so we were talking yesterday and somebody saying, hey, maybe we should write paleo words, wrapped around the sleeve. Some instruction. You don't have to just put it on, make a prayer, and then take it off. Wear it all day. I painted a shirt with the 10 Commandments all the way around. I did a skirt for my wife where the Proverbs 31, Proverbs 31 woman, the words written in paleo all the way around, and the 12 Hebrew alphabet letters glowed in the dark. I painted them with, it's like play around with his stuff. Make it present tense real. This isn't just for the library or just at the synagogue or just at the Bible study. It's like you become. Yeshua said, I only say what I hear my Father saying. I only do what I see him doing. He became, as it were, one with him, echad, singular, not doing his own thing. So he even prayed in the garden that we would be echad as he and his Father was. So some teachings say that Jesus is the Father. That's what the unity means. I don't believe that. I think the unity is a singular purpose, a singular mind, a singular voice, a singular attitude, a singular disposition. That's the meaning of the word achad, aleph het dalet. It talks about the 12 tribes being ichad, yod het dalet, which is similar but different. Yod is the putting their hand, and the aleph is kind of the thoughts in your mind. So as you study the words, you'll get a different sense. But for the 12 tribes to have ichad, meaning they're working together as like a construction crew where everybody has their job and they help each other, but they don't take each other's job away, and they don't do the job for the other guy. They think he's an idiot. Maybe if he needs some correction, they'll do that. But we work together to build the whole thing up. So as you take these things to heart, there's this collaborative effort. So let's look at Ezekiel 36:23. As a particular verse, it looks like an if-then situation, but it's actually an if-then or if-when situation. So we've only got like 15 minutes to talk about this, so this is going to be pretty short. If you look in the book of Ezekiel, it starts off where Yahuwah is giving a kind of like proclaiming a death sentence, the terms of punishment for all these various people groups. And it looks pretty bad. You know, he talks about Edom and Moab and Egypt and Assyria and Israel and Judah and bam, 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 bam. Oh, gosh. But all of a sudden in chapter 37, it's the valley of dry bones where Israel comes back to life. And then there's this war of Gog and Magog where Israel is victorious. There's the two sticks coming together. So it looks like, wait a minute. At first is this really this spiraling down. Everybody's getting, and he's just saying his how much he's disturbed by everybody. But then he's building something up. So the question is, where's the turnaround point? Where does the bad stuff become the good stuff? And as I was looking through this, it seems to me that the fulcrum tipping point, like, so we have this image of the fulcrum here and the seesaw, where this is up and this is down, and at some point it shifts and changes to where now these guys are down and these guys are up. Moshe, to reiterate what we said before, Moshe in the Song of Moses, Deuteronomy 33, he says, the other nations are around or dependent on or affected by the condition of Israel. It depends how you translate those words. In other words, the way I see it, the other nations are up if Israel's down. The other nations are down if Israel's up. Whatever Israel does, all the other nations are affected. Their future, their success, their sovereignty, their wealth, everything is based on what Israel does. So if you fundamentally disagree with me, anything else I say doesn't matter. Then you have to establish your own paradigm, your own picture of what's going on in the world. But if this is true, then the world condition as it is today is not the fault of the communists or the Illuminati, the New World Order, the Huns, the barbarians, the bad guys, it's Israel's fault. Pick your favorite bad guy. They're only got any power because Israel turned away from the covenant, period. That's it. And that's the message I see in the scripture from the beginning all the way up until today. It's our fault. You were talking about marriage relationship. I was at a marriage thing conference once, listening, and the pastor said, if there's anything wrong in the relationship, it's the man's fault. Now, one could protest and say, hey, that's not fair. She came with a bunch of baggage, she had previous relationships, blah, blah. It's like, no, wait a minute. How can it be the man's fault? That's just irrational. It's like, no, wait a minute. Yahweh said to Adam, I'm your resource of everything you need. Well, didn't he say that to her too? It's not about her. I'm talking to the guys. If Yahweh says to you, I'm your resource of everything you need something, come to me. I'll defend you. I'll champion your cause. I'll give you all your resources. I'll give you wisdom. I'll give you strength. I'll give you patience. I'll give you endurance. I'll give you anything you need. That's what he's saying to the man. Yeah, but what did he say to the woman? We're not even going to go there. What he said to the man is, I'll give you anything you need. Now, in the real life situation, if there's a trouble, the guy can say, hey, but the woman, that's using her excuse. Hey, the serpent put me up to it. That's Adam's excuse. Don't even go there. If there's trouble, Yahweh, what do I do? What do I need? Can you give it to me? You can't blame somebody else, even if we know it really is their fault. But, we can't have that mind. We have to have the mind that says, no matter the situation. There's a story, true story, was in Reader's Digest. There was a new recruit in the Coast Guard off of Astoria, one of the worst places for nautical in the world because of the Columbia River and the Pacific Ocean and all this stuff. And so this boat was in a terrible storm. And the new recruit says to the captain, should we call for some help? And the captain responded, "We are the help." Who do you turn to when there's nobody else to turn to? So it's by design that the wife turns to the husband, and the kids turn to the mom, and the man turns to Yahuwah. That's it. We are the help. We can't point the finger and blame, no matter whose fault it really is, even if it's the bad guys, the enemy, the NWO, the whoever your favorite group is. It has nothing to do with them. It's us. It's me. I can't account for what Tim does. It's my fault. Well, I can only control my house. No, as his Cohen, as his man, as his one who points to the truth, how many people do I affect? If I do something right, if I do something wrong, I don't know. But Daniel spoke in Daniel 9, and he was the head man for representing the entire nation before Yahweh and say, "Can you please forgive us and let us come home?" And Yahweh said, "Yeah." Yeshua, as a model type, represented the whole people group of the entire earth, but specifically Israel, and said, hey, he lifted up the offering to Yahweh of all his people. That's what we each need to do. So what has that got to do with Ezekiel 36:23? There's this condition. So if you look back where Yahweh is just upset, mad at all these people groups, he specifically says a number of times, Israel, this is Ezekiel 35, no, the beginning of 36. He says, let's start with verse 16. The word of Yahweh came to me saying, "Son of man, the house of Israel dwell on their land, and they have contaminated it with their way and their acts. Their way has become like the contamination of a menstruous woman before me, so I poured out my wrath upon them because of the blood that they had shed in the land, and because they had defiled it with their idols. I scattered them among the nations, and they were dispersed among the lands. According to their way and according to their acts did I judge them." See, that's the balanced scales. It's always that what we do is going to come back on us very specifically, measure for measure, particular for particular. He said his throne is based on mishpat, which is balanced scales. And you could say if something tips this way, there has to be a compensation, and everything evens out. That's the way his kingdom is established. They came among the nations where they came, and they were desecrated my holy name. They made halal my kadosh name. They made halal, that's the word desecrated, my kadosh name, that's the word kuf dalet shin, as in kadosh LaYahweh. Where it was said of them, "Oh, these are the people of Yahweh." But they departed, they were kicked out of his land. So when he kicked them out of the land, he sent his people as it were lights in the darkness scattered all across the face of the earth. I took pity on my kadosh Shem, my translated holy name, which the house of Israel had desecrated among the nations where they came. Therefore, say to the house of Israel. He uses this phrase, "You guys desecrated my name." That's the word halal, desecrated, and he says that half a dozen times here. Thus said Yahweh, "It is not for your sake that I act, O house of Israel, but for my kadosh Shem that you have desecrated." His kadosh Shem is really, really, really important. It's all about his kadosh Shem. You desecrated among the nations where you came. What's his kadosh Shem? As we said, these letters are his kadosh ruach, and his name is not just Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, but Shem means name, fame, renown, reputation, and the occupation of all your concerns. Your hobbies, your interests, your favorite color, the food you like, all that is your Shem. Every one of these 22 letters is the expression of Yahuwah's Shem in his own words by his own choice of how he was going to describe it. So these moedim, the moed are testimonies, witnesses, but they are the evident, they're the manifestation of the things that he finds important and beautiful. In fact, the word ed means choice, best, treasure, by which I have adorned myself. These festivals are Yahweh's choice, best, treasure, and he invented them. So of all the things that he could dream up, the most beautiful, the most wonderful, the most packed with meaning, and the fact that they bear witness of the identity of Yeshua, he thought them up and said, wow, this is the ultimate it. And that's the very thing that at the Council of Nicaea, they ripped off threw in the garbage and replaced them with something else. So we have made halal his kadosh Shem, because this word halal is the English letter H, and then L, and then L, and the vowel is just put in later. Well, if you put the vowel E in there, it's the word hell. We have made Yahweh's name hell. We've made his reputation hell. And if you look at what it means, in the dictionary, it also means profane, violated, desecrated, made common, like a mat that you'd wipe your feet on. It's not like, oh, this is like nice white wool carpet. Take your shoes off, please. That's kadosh. That's set apart. But the halal is just wipe your feet. And say, I got some, you stepped in, what was that? Did somebody turn the dog loose over it? Just wipe it on that. That's what we did to his name. It also means pierced, wounded, hollowed out. So the word flute is halal. Is a flute a bad instrument? No, but it's hollow and it's got holes in it. That's the word halal. It's hollow and has holes in it. It also is the word for a priest who's denied the priesthood and a priest of questionable genealogical descent. Now, to cut to the chase, that sounds like the story of Jesus Christ. He was made, they said, he's no better than a common thief. He was rendered profane, vile, and killed with the common criminal. He was pierced, wounded unto death. This means wounded unto death by being pierced. He was our great priest who was denied the priesthood, and he was of questionable genealogical descent. He's a bastard. Nobody knows who his father is. No such thing as a virgin birth. The word halal, very specifically by every one of its definitions, fits the story of us proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. But we did it with good intention as if it was the pure truth. And here it goes on to say, verse 23, Ezekiel 36, I will sanctify, that's make kadosh, my great name, that's my Shem HaGadol, that is desecrated amongst the nations, that is made halal in the understanding, the eyes of the nations, the goyim, that you have desecrated among them. Here's the critical word. Then the nations will know that I am Yahweh, the word of Yahweh Elohim, when I become sanctified through you before their eyes. The word before their eyes means we have to make his Shem Kadosh understandable in their eyes, in their weighing, balancing, perceiving, contemplation. Israel's job is to be scattered amongst the nations so that the nations can comprehend the true reality of his Shem Kadosh on his terms, not doctrine, not religion, not custom, not tradition, not false translations. His Shem, kadoshly interpreted. My point is, these letters as pictures cannot be misinterpreted. Well, they can be, but if you reduce them down to the paleo-pictographic hieroglyphic, this is a letter. It's a camel's head shaped like a boomerang. What does it mean? This is a bet shaped like an embryo. It means house or tent or to embody. What does that mean? The letters are so simple that by his own definition, if he indeed was the one who made this up, which we prove that it was because of the pattern that is embedded within the alphabet, self-referentially organizing the alphabet according to the Moedim, which is his witnesses, that the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet testifies of himself on his own terms, which is kadosh concerning his Shem. So that if you don't regard the seventh-day Sabbath regarding the Zion and the Zadi, nor the festivals regarding these whole center section between the Chet and the Zadi, you got the wrong identity. The wrong identity is the halal Shem that Israel has desecrated his name amongst the nations. When I become sanctified through you. You are the agents of making his Shem Kadosh. And he says, when you guys do that, this is my interpretation of the verse, when we, instead of telling any other story, no matter how well-intentioned we are, like Christmas and Easter, hey, I do it because I love the sacrifice Jesus made for me and the fact that he came down here from heaven. Okay, great. But Christmas and Easter and Sunday is not Kadosh. It's halal. It's just not true. Therefore, we can't do that, or else we perpetuate the teeter-totter being in the wrong direction. Then, when I am made Kadosh in you, sanctifying my Shem, making my Shem Kadosh in the ayin, the understanding of the Goyim nations, the ones who are illiterate, and the ones who've been lied to, the ones who can't even think straight, when you make my ways, my reputation, my fame, as it truly ought to be, then you go back to the first, I will sanctify my great name, which basically the way I read that is him saying, you know all the matters of this word? This says, I will be your Elohim and you will be my people. I will be your champion. I will hero you and I will whoop the bejeebers out of those guys that have been messing with you for the last 3,000 years. And so the time comes when you guys make my Shem Kadosh, then I will step into those shoes that you set out for me, and I will stomp the earth in them as your Elohim, living up to my fabled reputation that all your ancestors looked forward with anxiety. When will you do this? Is it now you will restore the kingdom? Please, will you come? When you guys make my Shem Kadosh, then I will act out my Kadosh Shem. So the burden's on us. And the question is, so what do we do? What we're doing today is manifesting this instruction regarding his Moedim, stopping our work, sitting here talking about his stuff. Mikra Kodesh. The word kara means to assemble, respond to the summons, like Yeshua the parable, the guy calling out all his friends. They say, I'm too busy, I can't do it. To respond to the summons, to gather and learn how to read. Learn how to read the scripture is the meaning of the word kara, which is where they get the Quran in Arabic. For us to sit here, talk about the spelling of words regarding the Kadosh Shem of Yahweh is fulfilling what Ezekiel 36:23 has been waiting for almost 3,000 years. Just so you know the significance of this event. We're out of time.